So we have with us Tamara Abdel-Jaber, and she is the co-founder of Amam Ventures, and we will be talking about the future of venture capital in the Middle East, but from the lens of females. Thank you so much, Tamara, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a true pleasure.
So Tamara, to start us off, how was the experience of raising a maiden VC fund, and what was the biggest takeaway for you?
I didn't realize that at the start, but starting an investment fund was pretty much the same as starting my consulting practice 20 years ago. I had to convince people of myself a lot and my partners. I had to convince potential investors of the importance of what we're trying to do with the fund, raise a lot of awareness before they started buying into the idea. So we faced very similar challenges to starting a business a few years ago. And in terms of takeaway, there were quite a few actually. So we spent a lot of time designing the investment fund, identifying our differentiators, identifying our target market. And all that effort paid off because using design thinking approaches, creating personas, all that preparation clearly showed our uniqueness to investors when we started talking to investors. The chemistry between partners is extremely important, and that shows to potential investors, especially that we are first-time fund managers. We haven't worked together before. We've been friends for a very long time, but having a working relationship is totally different, and it came off very positively, that chemistry. Another thing was the willingness to be starving artists. Starting a fund is the same as starting a company, and you need to bootstrap, you need to put in your time, your effort, even if you're not getting compensated. Even if you're not getting compensated. Another thing is that not everyone understands impact. The fact that we're an impact investment fund makes it harder for us to talk to people. And the last point, that it's quite harder for female fund managers, let alone first-time fund managers.
So what is the core investment thesis at Amam Ventures?
So Amam Ventures is here to address a big funding gap that SMEs are facing. When we think of funding in general, VC funds in particular, we find that VC funds are most interested in tech startups. But the market is not only made of tech startups. There are SMEs in traditional industries that are facing a big funding gap. So what we're looking at is a gender lens. So we're looking at SMEs that are committed to equal opportunities, SMEs that have a female founder or a female leader or a percentage of females in employment or a product or service that caters for women. We're looking for growth-oriented SMEs, so SMEs that have been established for a while, they have revenues and have a clear expansion idea and are looking for risk capital in order to execute on their ideas. We use innovative blended finance instruments, most prominently the revenue capital. And this is part of our strategy to innovate when it comes to funding instruments in the region. And the last point is that we're doing our best to combine funding with strong customized technical assistance that will position us as ecosystem players. Of course, helping our portfolio companies, but also helping our pipeline and other funds pipeline companies.
So talking about the ecosystem, venture capital in the MENA region was earlier all about connections and Vasta. How has the sector evolved in the past decade?
I would say that it's still about connections, maybe not so much about Wasta. So there are more players, especially in the VC space. We're seeing more successes, we're seeing more data, but there's still not enough pipeline. Companies that are investable, that are investment ready, we need to see more of those. And that's where our technical assistance arm at CAN kicks in. We aim at developing pipeline for us and for others. And the last thing I see is that we're still not measuring the impact enough. There's a lot that can be done in that space.
And what role do you think American VC firms are going to play? Because we have seen a rise in funding from American VC ventures in the Middle East. So how do you think this will impact the dynamics of venture capital in the MENA region?
I would say that competition is always healthy. And having American VCs operating in the region brings in a push to regional and local VC funds to actually bring up or their game, do better. So it's an opportunity also for us to learn from the mistakes that US VC firms have made, because they've been around for a long time. They evolved over time, and we can learn from the mistakes that they've done and not repeat them. So I would say that it creates a healthier ecosystem, yet a more challenging one with increased competition.
So it's a learning process.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so Tamara, funds for women by women has become a movement. Why is gendered capital relevant or important in the MENA region especially?
That's my favorite topic of all. So when we look at the status of women in the MENA region, and although there have been a lot of improvements in the past few years, women are still lagging when it comes to their contribution to the workforce, when it comes to their contribution to owning businesses, when it comes to their contribution in board seats. A lot of things, women still have a gap that they need to bridge. And this is why it's a role for every one of us to help basically bridge that gap. Now, when we mapped out the ecosystem around us during the design phase for Amam Ventures, we identified a big funding gap that is there for SMEs, but even more so for women-owned and women-led SMEs. There is a big knowledge gap as well. So there are a lot of programs with incubators and accelerators that are being offered to tech startups, but a lot of women are not tech startups. They're SMEs in traditional businesses, so they need a lot of support. At the same time, we just announced ourselves as the Jordan chapter of Zebras Unite, and it's a global movement where we're looking at businesses that are committed to profit and purpose, to collaboration and partnerships with others, and we see that a lot of females are in that space. And that's why there's a need for us to support more women. Being females ourselves, we understand the challenges that they go through. We have shared networks, and we're always looking to partner and collaborate. So that's why we believe that this is a movement that's on the rise and will continue to be on the rise for quite some time until that gap is bridged.
And I think supporting women is one of the most powerful accelerators.
I always quote Madeleine Albright when she said that there's a special place in hell for women who don't support other women. I go by that.
I absolutely agree. So talking about power, venture capital is based on power laws. A selection of your fund provides most of its returns. So in this context, how do you pick the winners?
So and it's all in our investment thesis. We're not the typical VC fund. So
Okay.
VC funds operate, like you said, based on power laws, where they're looking at investing in 10 companies. They expect that 8 of those companies will disappear, and then the remaining 2 will have to compensate and create value that is more than 30 or 40 times what they would have made with the other companies. In our case, we support the potential winners, but we don't expect one company to take it all. we're looking at zebras versus unicorns. So unicorns are rare, We can't expect to have a lot of potential Karims or Ubers or Facebooks, etc. But there are a lot of businesses that are in traditional industries that are looking to grow. At the same time, they don't want to dilute their ownership. They want to keep the business within the family, pass it on to their children. And when we looked around, we found that there's this global movement, the Zebras Unite, where companies are looking, like I said, to achieve profit, but also have a clear purpose. They are very resilient companies that operate in tough situations and are able to sustain. Maybe not realizing their full potential, but they exist for years and years. They are always looking for opportunities to partner and collaborate with their communities, with other like-minded companies. And these are the companies that we're looking to invest in. So when picking our potential winners, we are looking for companies that are zebras, that are looking to continue making profits, that have growth opportunities, but don't have the funding to make it happen. And they are focused on sustainability and impact. And for us, we feel that we are changing the power dynamics because we are giving a voice and backing up those companies that no one else would be looking at in a traditional VC world.
But what's interesting is you called it a global movement. So what are some of the other countries where you see a focus being given on zebras and not unicorns, as you said?
Actually, we hosted an event a couple of weeks ago when we announced the launch of the Jordan chapter of Zebras Unite. And we had representatives, the managing director for Zebras Unite in Mexico, in Austria, as well as the managing director for the global movement. And they were all sharing stories, sometimes painful stories from their work with VCs. A lot of them have left the traditional VC world and moved on into a more impact investment focused entities because they felt that this is the way to make a change. So that's extremely important, and this is a movement that's gaining momentum globally.
That's actually good to hear.
Yeah, we're super happy about it, actually.
Okay, so Tamara, the MENA region seems to be flooded with capital and founders have options. So what does Amam Ventures bring to the table as a competitive edge?
I totally agree with you that founders have options, especially that there is currently more supply of funding than demand. The pipeline is still being built. It's still not strong enough. We did try to be different. We have identified our differentiators, and that's why we spent a long time in the design phase of Amam Ventures before we actually announced our launch. So one of our key differentiators is the gender lens. For Jordan, we are the first gender lens SME investment fund. We focus on impact and we measure impact for our fund, but also for our portfolio companies. We help our companies design a gender lens action plan, measure SDG impact, measure ESG performance. So impact is big for us. Technical assistance is also extremely important. So in terms of background, we started a few years ago, one of my partners and I, with setting up a virtual community for women across the region. We called it Women in Business Arabia. We boast 45,000 members within that group. And that group has been the basis for us to offer technical assistance to the masses, to digitize and democratize knowledge for women across the region. Spur women and support women who are looking to either start their businesses or grow their businesses, collaborate with others, etc. 20% of the members are business owners. Okay. So that technical assistance base was extremely important for us moving forward into Amam, because we realized that we need to continue supporting the masses. This is where the pipeline is coming out. We need to support the pipeline companies, but we also need to support our portfolio companies. And this opened up opportunities for us to collaborate with other players in the market. And that's why we see ourselves as ecosystem players. We create deal flow for others. We build on technical assistance programs that others are providing. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. So we believe that that's a key differentiator. The fact that we focus on SMEs versus tech startups, our personas are pure SMEs, companies that have been around for at least 2 years, are generating revenues, but have growth potential and need support in order to grow. The final differentiator that we have at Amam is the funding instrument that we use, whether it's revenue capital or other innovative blended finance instruments. And that's a core motto at Amam. We want to bring innovation in the funding space to the region.
So it's not a simple copy-paste of the Silicon Valley model.
Absolutely not. There are more like us coming up around the world, but not in our region yet. We hope that we will encourage others to follow in our steps, support them in order to focus on similar differentiators.
So as one of our final questions, to other female founders watching this video right now, what would be your 3 biggest insights that you would want them to follow?
For female founders, not
for female
fund
founders.
managers. So for female founders, I would say that networking is key for the success of any SME, especially women-owned and women-led SMEs, because we don't have the traditional networks that male founders have. So women need to build their confidence and put themselves out there in order to build relationships that can help them grow their business. The second point would be, don't be shy to dream big. When we talk to female founders, we find that their projections for the growth of their business are always modest, and they don't need to be that. Some of them have amazing ideas. They address big demand in the unmet demand in the market, and they need to I don't want to say the word that men use, but grow something, a pair of something. But basically, they need to put themselves out there, think big, and dare to dream. Another thing is that women need to continue learning. Again, I've heard this so many times that we are afraid of numbers. We don't understand finance and accounting. We don't understand HR. Today, there is no excuse for not knowing and understanding a certain topic that's related to managing and growing your business. Knowledge is democratized, knowledge is digitized, and there are a lot of materials and contents out there, so women need to focus on their continuous education.
On that note, on that hopeful note, thank you so much, Tamara, for being a part of Leading with Women.
Thank you, Rahi. I'm so proud to be part of this. It's a true honor, and I really appreciate the opportunity.